I'm Alex Pino with tinyhousetalk.com, and I'm here with Laura LaVoie of 120squarefeet.com. And we're going to start by asking her, how did this all start? Tell us, go back in time and tell us how this whole tiny house adventure started for you and your husband.
Well, it is actually something that Matt had wanted to do pretty much his whole life. He always wanted to build a house with his own hands that he could live in, and it was sort of a complementary dream for me. You know, I wanted to live independently and self-sufficiently, so building a house seemed to be a great way to do that. So it started a long time ago researching a bunch of different things. We researched earthships and hardwood masonry, and then eventually stumbled upon the tiny house, which was perfect for us.
Awesome. And prior to this, did you guys have any experience in building things?
No, nothing at all. I mean, aside from random, kind of at-home projects, like painting and maybe refinishing a floor or something like that. No, we've never built anything before in our lives.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. So, what was it like building the cabin, especially doing so without any of that construction experience?
Well, we made it even more difficult for ourselves because not only did we have no construction experience, but we decided to build it on a mountain about halfway up the mountain without road access. So the biggest challenge for us was to bring all of our stuff up to the building site, which we had to do either by hand or on an ATV. So that was pretty challenging. Not only did we kind of have to start from scratch and learn as we went along, but we also had to go through the physical challenges of getting all the stuff where we needed it to be before we could even start building.
Wow. So I'm curious, how did you guys build up the guts to do it, to commit to doing it?
We just did it. We spent so long researching it and deciding it was something we wanted to do, and eventually we just decided that all we could do was give it a go and, start building. So, the guts, I don't know if I would even still say we have guts, but, it just came down to finally getting started with it instead of waiting.
Right. And how long would you say, the time between it's a dream and you're talking about it and you're researching, like you're going online and looking at all these fantasy ideas, and how long did it take for you guys, like you guys were dreaming, right, about it, and then how long afterwards to where it was like, whoa, we're here, we're starting, we're doing it?
It took us about 2 years to get to the point from where we knew this was something we wanted to do to the very first, day doing the work. And that really started when we bought the land, and we knew at that point we had to do something. So we bought the land, and we spent the next 2 years deciding exactly what we wanted to do and how we wanted to do it, and then we broke ground on our house and started building.
That's awesome. Would you say that when you bought the land, is that what truly committed you guys to going through with it all the way?
Yeah, absolutely. That was a big part for us. And, it's different from a lot of tiny house builders because a lot of tiny houses are built on trailers with the intention to take them around and, to different places and be mobile with them. But we wanted a very specific part of land in a very specific part of the country. So that was the first step for us, was finding land exactly where we wanted it. That was exactly what we wanted. And once we had that signed, sealed, and delivered, we were ready to go.
Cool. So can you tell us what your life was like before all of this, before the cabin?
It was pretty ordinary, to be honest. We, for the last 10 years before moving up here, we lived in Atlanta. We both worked typical 9-to-5 jobs. I was working as a recruiter for the temporary staffing industry, which I had actually been doing for years before that, too, before we moved to Atlanta. And we lived in a 2,700-square-foot house in the suburbs of Atlanta, and we enjoyed it. We had parties, and we had, friends over all the time, and it was a cool place to live, but it just wasn't fulfilling for us. There just was something missing. It was perfectly comfortable, and we were relatively content, but it just was kind of ordinary.
Okay, and can you, speaking of friends and family and you guys having parties, how did they react to this change that you guys made in your life?
A lot of them are still a little confused. even though we've been doing it for a while. But, most people are pretty encouraging and pretty supportive of what we've done. A lot of people have come up to visit us. We have parties up here, too, because we have a lot of outdoor space, so we can have camping get-togethers and play music and, cook outside and things like that. So a lot of people have come up to visit us here, which is really cool to have a lot of people involved. In fact, we had a number of people help us build the house itself. So we have a camping party, and a bunch of people would come up and help us raise the walls or, do the siding or things like that. So that was a lot of fun. So most people are pretty supportive.
That's cool. Is there a change, like, in the beginning when you first introduced the idea compared to, to your friends and your family? What's the difference now that you've done it for a while as to, like, before when you kind of, like, were just announcing it and you had the idea of it?
I think a lot of people, don't expect you to actually go through with some of the things you say. So when we told people we were building a very, very tiny house in the middle of the mountain, I think a lot of people were thinking, oh, sure they will. But as we continued doing it, people just kind of got they got encouraged by it. A lot of our friends started doing, they weren't building tiny houses, but they were encouraged to do things that they'd always dreamed of doing as well, which was kind of neat to be that sort of inspiration for folks.
That was my next question. I was going to ask you, what you guys did it inspire any of that same group of people, of your family and friends, to make any similar changes? Maybe not so drastic like you guys, but like did it motivate them to do things? I guess it did.
Yeah, it did. I think it motivated people to do a lot of different types of things. I never want to be the person that says, oh, everybody needs to downsize their lives and everybody needs to move into a really tiny cabin or anything like that. I think everyone has a passion for something different. But we had friends, for instance, I have a friend who decided she wanted to get into roller derby. And shortly after we started building this and we were being really encouraging to all of our friends to do things, she started practicing and trying out for roller derby. So, that's what made her happy, and I was happy to be able to encourage that.
That's a really cool point. I love that about how when you get passionate about something in life, it's almost like it's contagious. And you're right, it's not like everybody has to do the same thing. But it's cool that when, like, you guys just wanted to do this, and you're obviously super passionate about it, and I love how it brought out that into some of the close people in your life. That's just so cool.
Yeah.
So, in what positive ways has the house and the lifestyle changed your life, now compared to before when you were in a 2,700 square foot house?
Sure. We feel a lot more engaged in our lives now, not only with the way we live. We have a lot of things now that are, I guess, essentially chores, because we live off the grid, and our lives in Atlanta were so easy, where everything was taken for granted, and now there are things that we have to do that certainly most people don't have to worry about doing. Like, all of our water comes from a spring on the land, so we have to collect that and and bring it up to the house and put it through our water purifier and things like that. So there are those kind of day-to-day chores, but at the same time we also feel a lot more engaged with everything else. We spend a lot of time in the closest city to us, which is Asheville, which we absolutely love, Asheville, North Carolina. And we go out, we meet people, we enjoy the area, we enjoy the mountains, we enjoy the city. We spend a lot of time outdoors, doing a lot of outdoor activities, which, is interesting because we have a very, very tiny house. So we expanded, instead of building, more space and more rooms, we expanded by building outdoor scenes and outdoor places where we could just enjoy the mountains. So we feel a lot more engaged in life in general.
So what is it like in the mountains? Like, how far away are you from Asheville? How long does it take to get your water? What is it like using the toilet that you guys have? Things like that, like your everyday things and eating and getting groceries and things like that. Can you tell us about that?
Sure, absolutely. We're about 30 minutes north of Asheville. So a 30-minute drive, no big deal to get into town. In fact, when we lived in Atlanta, just to get from one side of Atlanta to another could take an hour or more. So even being 30 minutes from the biggest city in the area is really kind of nice.
And it
so we do...
Sorry about that. And it must be more of a relaxing drive, right?
Oh, much, yes. My stress level is way down from living in the big city. Driving around here is much easier. But living on the mountain, like I said, we collect our water from the spring. It doesn't take that long. The biggest part is that we kind of built our house, like I said, halfway up the mountain without road access. That means we have to physically carry jugs of water up to the house. We have 4-gallon containers, and Matt usually carries those because they're heavy. Bring up 2 containers a day, and we use maybe 1 container a day, and, we just keep rotating it in and out. So it really isn't a hardship to bring it up. We have things like the traditional composting toilet system, so, that's a matter of, going through that process and making sure that is taken care of as needed. And as far as, cooking, we built an outdoor kitchen that we use, which is great. When the weather's nice, we can go outside and cook on the camp oven that we have, which is really awesome, and spend a lot of time outside cooking and eating.
That's awesome. So I'm a little more curious about, and I'm sure the listeners might be too, about the toilet. How often do you have to empty it out?
Usually empty it out about once or twice a week.
That's not too bad.
No, not at all.
And what about showering?
We have a very creative shower setup. We actually, because we decided not to plumb our house with traditional plumbing, I don't know why, we just decided not to. We actually built a shower out of a garden sprayer, the kind that you use maybe to spray poison ivy or something like that.
Uh-huh.
It's got the pump, and so you fill it up with hot water, and you pump it up, and it creates a pressurized shower. So it's actually really kind of nice and comfortable. I really like our shower. It's kind of the coolest thing we built.
That's cool. So, happiness level now with the tiny house in the mountains compared to before?
Oh, I don't even know that I could put a number on it. It is so much less stressful and everything. We're very content and very happy living up here in the mountains. There was a lot of unknown going into it, because not only were we completely changing our lifestyle, but I was quitting my full-time job to become a freelance writer, so I didn't know how that was going to go. And certainly it could have been very stressful, but, I've been very, very pleased with the decision to make that change, and it's made me immensely happier.
That's great to hear. And for your husband?
Oh, yes. He is much, much happier up here. He still works for a major company, but they're allowed to work remote. Everybody in the company works remotely. So he's able to work from up here, and we work together in the tiny house, which is kind of funny, but we do it. And he's a lot happier up here, and he's a lot more engaged with his life in general, and not feeling, kind of trapped by the day-to-day sort of living in the suburbs.
So how do you guys? I really didn't realize that you guys that both of you worked out of the tiny house. What is that like?
It's not so bad at all. Obviously, we work, a few feet from one another. I sit at the little kitchen table that we have in there with my laptop, and I'm a writer, so I don't, take phone calls or do things like that typically. So, I just sit and type away. And he does a lot of things. He'll be on conference calls, and he'll do a lot of work. He gets to work off of his tablet, which is just a really cool setup, so he can sit on the couch and work all day. And he'll take the tablet outside and go on the deck we have outside the table there and work from outside as well.
Oh, cool. That's nice. So to start wrapping things up here, I want to know, do you feel like you guys have a rich life now?
Oh, very much so. We have a very rich life now. It's what we don't have in a lot of extra money, because obviously I quit a well-paying job to do something where I get paid occasionally. What I make up for with that is a lot of time, where I feel a lot more in control of my time and what I do. I think it's really paid off making this kind of move and simplifying my life and all that sort of stuff.
That's awesome, and that's really great to hear, and I'm sure that he feels the same way. What are you most excited for because of these changes, like for your future?
Letting living deliberately is kind of the best lesson we could have had. Like, no matter what happens in the future, even if we, can't keep living in a tiny house for some crazy reason, we know that we're able to live very simply, and we're able to engage with our own lives in ways that we didn't realize we were missing before. So I'm really looking forward to, seeing what the future holds, and I don't really know what that is besides a lot of, projects that we can't sit still. So, I'm really excited about where this can go and where this can take us.
I saw on your blog that you're starting a book.
Yes, I am. I am starting a book. I intend to have it out sometime in the spring of next year. It's called 120 Tips for Tiny Living. So I'm been putting that together, and I'm excited to get that out.
That's awesome. I'm excited for it as well, and I'm sure anybody listening might be really excited about it too. So just to wrap things up, let our listeners know where they can find you and follow along with what you're doing and your book progress, as well as anything else that you might be up to in the future.
Sure, absolutely. Well, my website is 120squarefeet.com, and I keep it pretty up to date with just the general goings on here at the tiny house. And you can check book progress and things like that on that website as well.
Awesome, Laura. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us for a little while.
Sure. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate it.